His presence daily live.
The 24th of January 1901, Volume 4. Louisa asks Jesus the reason for his privation. Jesus explains it. Having spent the last days in silence and sometimes also without my adorable Jesus, this morning as he came, I lamented to him, saying, Lord, how is it that you do not come? How things have changed. It shows that it is either for the chastisement of my sins that you deprive me of your lovable presence, or because you no longer want me in this state of victim. Oh, please, I beg you, let me know your will. If I could not be opposed when you wanted the sacrifice from me, much less can I do it now that, finding me no longer worthy of being victim, you want to take me out of it. Interrupting my speaking, Jesus told me, My daughter, by having made myself victim for mankind, taking upon myself all weaknesses, miseries, and everything that man deserved before the divinity, I represent the head of all, and since I am the head before the divinity, the human nature finds in me a most powerful shield that defends it, protects it, excuses it, and intercedes for it. Now, since you are in the state of victim, you come to represent for me the head of the present generation. Therefore, having to send some chastisement for the good of the peoples and to call them back to me, if I came to you as usual, by just showing myself to you, I already feel relieved. My pains are mitigated, and it happens to me as to someone who feels a strong pain and screams because of the spasm. If the pain ceased, he would no longer feel like screaming and sending out laments. The same happens to me. As my pains are mitigated, naturally I no longer feel like sending that chastisement. You then also naturally, in seeing me, try to spare me and to take the pains of others upon yourself. You cannot help doing your office of victim before my presence, and if you did not do so, which can never be, I would be displeased with you. Here is the cause of my privation. It is not because I want to punish your sins. I have other ways to purge you. However, I will repay you. On the days I come, I will double my visits. Aren't you happy? And I, No, Lord, I want you always. Whatever the cause might be, I do not give way to remaining a single day without you. While I was saying this, Jesus disappeared, and I returned inside myself. End of the reading. The 24th of January 1920, Volume 12. God created man so that he might keep him company. Continuing in my usual state, I was uniting myself with Jesus, praying him not to leave me alone, but to come and keep me company. And he, moving in my interior, told me, My daughter, if you knew how I desire, yearn for, and love the company of the creature, so much that if in creating man I said, It is not good for man to be alone, let us make another creature similar to him, who may keep him company, so that one may form the delight of the other. I said these same words to my love before creating man. I do not want to be alone, but I want the creature for my company. I want to create him in order to amuse myself with him, to share all my contentments with him. With his company I will pour myself out in love. This is why I made him in my likeness, and as his intelligence thinks of me and is interested in me, he keeps company with my wisdom. And as my thoughts keep company with his, we amuse ourselves together. If his gaze looks at me and at created things in order to love me, I feel the company of his gaze. If his tongue prays or teaches what is good, I feel the company of his voice. If his heart loves me, I feel the company of his love, and so with all the rest. But if he does the opposite, I feel lonely, like a destitute king. But alas, how many leave me alone and neglect me. End of the reading. The 21st of January 1921, Volume 12, the third fiat, will bring to completion the glory and the honour of the fiat of creation, and will be confirmation and development of the fruits of the fiat of redemption. These three fiats will conceal the most holy Trinity on earth. I was feeling annihilated in thinking about this blessed fiat, but my lovable Jesus wanted to increase my confusion. It seemed that he wants to make fun of me, proposing to me astonishing and almost incredible things, taking pleasure in seeing me confused and more annihilated. And what is worse is that I am forced by obedience to write them, to my greater torment. So, while I was praying, my sweet Jesus leaned his head against mine, sustaining his forehead with his hand, and a light coming from his forehead told me, "My daughter, the first fiat was pronounced in creation, with no intervention of creature. The second fiat was pronounced in redemption. I wanted the intervention of the creature, and I chose my mama for the completion of the second fiat. Now, for the fulfillment of both, I want to pronounce the third fiat, and I want to pronounce it through you. I've chosen you for the fulfillment of the third fiat. This third fiat will bring to completion the glory and the honour of the fiat of creation, and will be confirmation and development of the fruits of the fiat of redemption. These three fiats will conceal the most holy Trinity on earth, and I will have the fiat voluntas tua on earth as it is in heaven. These three fiats will be inseparable. Each one will be life of the other. They will be one and triune, but distinct among themselves. My love wants it, my glory demands it. Having unleashed the first two fiats from the womb of my creative power, it wants to unleash the third fiat, because my love can no longer contain it, and this in order to complete the work which came from me. Otherwise, the works of creation and of redemption would be incomplete." On hearing this, I was not only confused but stunned, and I said to myself, "Is all this possible? There are so many. And if it is true that he has chosen me, it seems to me that this is one of the usual follies of Jesus. And then, what could I do or say from within a bed, half crippled and inept as I am? Could I ever face the multiplicity and infinity of the fiat of creation and of redemption? Since my fiat is similar to the other two fiats, I must run together with them, multiply myself with them, do the good which they do, braid myself with them. Jesus, think of what you are saying. Think of what you are doing. I am not for this much." But who can tell all the nonsense that I was saying? Now my sweet Jesus came back and told me, "My daughter, calm yourself. I choose whomever I please. However, know that I begin all of my works between myself and one creature, and then they are spread. In fact, who was the first spectator of the fiat of my creation? Adam and then Eve. It surely wasn't a multitude of people. Only after years and years did crowds or multitudes of people become spectators of it. In the second fiat, my mama was the only spectator. Not even Saint Joseph knew anything. But my mama found herself more than in your condition. The greatness of the creative power of my work, which she felt within herself, was such that, confused, she did not feel the strength to mention it to anyone. And if then Saint Joseph knew it, it was because I manifested it to him. So this fiat germinated like a seed within her virginal womb, and the ear of grain was formed in order to multiply it, and then it came to the light of day. But who were the spectators? Very few. In the room of Nazareth, my dear Mama and Saint Joseph were the only spectators. Then when my most holy humanity grew up, I went out and I made myself known, but not to all. Afterwards it spread more, and it will still spread. So will the third fiat be. It will germinate within you. The ear of grain will be formed. Only the priest will have the knowledge of it. Then a few souls, and then it will spread. It will spread. It will follow the same path as creation and redemption. The more crushed you feel, the more the ear of the third fiat grows and is fecundated in you. Therefore, be attentive and faithful. End of the reading. The 24th of January 1923, Volume 15. How it had been reserved that the doors of the divine will would be opened to Louisa. The divine will, acting alone in three distinct persons in heaven, wants to act alone in three distinct persons on earth. I spent all these days in the sea of bitterness, because blessed Jesus very often deprives me of his lovable presence, and if he makes himself seen, I see him in my interior, immersed in the sea, whose waves rise above him, in the act of submerging him. And in order not to be submerged and suffocated, Jesus moves his arm, rejecting the wave, and looks at me with pitiful eyes, asking for my help, and saying to me, "My daughter, see how sins are so many that they want to submerge me? Don't you see the waves that they send me, such that if I did not motion my arm I would be drowned? What sad times, which will bring sad consequences." And while he is saying this, he hides more within my interior. What pain to see Jesus in this state. These are pains which torture the soul and tear it to shreds. Oh, how one would suffer any martyrdom in order to relieve sweet Jesus. Then this morning it seemed to me that my lovable Jesus could not take any more, and making use of his power, he came out from within that sea full of all those weapons, capable of wounding and even of killing, which struck terror to the mere sight. And leaning his head upon my breast, all afflicted and pale, but beautiful and of enrapturing beauty, he told me, "My beloved daughter, I could take no more. If justice wants its course, my love too wants to pour itself out and follow its way. This is why I have come out of that horrible sea, which the sins of creatures form around me, in order to give field to my love, to come and pour myself out with the little daughter of my will. You too could not take any more. In that horrible sea I heard the rattle of your agony because of my privation, and as though putting everyone aside, I have run to you to pour myself out and to let you pour yourself out in love with me, so as to give you life again." And while saying this, he squeezed me tightly to himself, kissed me, and placed his hand at my throat almost to relieve me from the pain that he himself had given me a few days ago when, as he strongly pulled my nerves at the place of my heart which correspond to my throat, I remained as though choked. My Jesus was all love, and wanted me to return to him the kisses, the caresses, the squeezes that he gave me. After this I understood that he wanted me to enter into the immense sea of his will, to be cheered from the sea of the sins of creatures. And I, clinging to him more tightly, told him, "My beloved good, together with you I want to follow all the acts which your humanity did in the divine will. Wherever you reached, I too want to reach, so that in all of your acts you may find mine as well. So just as your intelligence in the supreme will went through all the intelligences of creatures in order to give the celestial Father glory, honour, and reparation for each thought of creature in a divine manner, and seal each one of their thoughts with the light and the grace of your will, I too want to go through each thought, from the first to the last, which will have life in human minds, to repeat what was done by you. Even more, I want to unite myself with the acts of our celestial Mama, who never remained behind, but always ran together with you, and with those which your saints have done." At this last word, Jesus looked at me and all tenderness told me, "My daughter, in my eternal will you will find all my acts as well as those of my Mama, which enveloped all the acts of creatures, from the first to the last, which will exist as though within a mantle. This mantle is as though made as two, and one of them rose up to heaven in order to give to my Father with a divine will all that creatures owed him, love, glory, reparation, and satisfaction, while the other remained as defence and help of creatures. No one has entered into my divine will to do all that my humanity did. My saints have done my will, but have not entered into it to do all that my will does, taking all acts, as though in a twinkling of an eye, from the first to the last man, and becoming actors, spectators, and divinizers. By doing my will, one does not arrive at doing all that my eternal volition contains. Rather, it descends into the creature, as limited as much as the creature can contain of it. Only one who enters into it expands and diffuses himself like solar light in the eternal flights of my volition, and finding my acts and those of my Mama, he places his own. Look inside my will. Are there perhaps other acts of creature multiplied within mine, reaching up to the last act which is to be performed on this earth? Look well. You will find none. This means that no one has entered. It had been reserved that the doors of my eternal volition would only be opened to my little daughter, so as to unify her acts with mine and with those of my Mama, and render all our acts triple before the Supreme Majesty and for the good of creatures. Now, since I have opened the doors, others may enter, provided that they dispose themselves for such a great good. Then I continued to go around in his will together with Jesus to do what was done by him. Then we looked at the earth together, how many horrible things could be seen, and how the preparations for the war continued, such as to be horrifying. All trembling, I found myself inside myself. Then after a little while he came back and continued to speak about his most holy will, saying to me, "My daughter, my will in heaven contained the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. One was the will of the three divine persons, even though they were distinct among themselves, their will was one, and being the only will acting within us, it formed all our happiness and our equality in love, in power, in beauty, etc. But if instead of one will there were three wills, we could not be happy, and even less could we make others happy. We would have been unequal in power, in wisdom, in sanctity, etc. So our one will acting within us is all our good, from which so many seas of happiness are released that no one can penetrate down to the bottom. Now, in seeing the great good of acting alone in three distinct persons, our will wants to act alone in three distinct persons on earth, and these are the Mother, the Son, the Spouse. Through them it wants to release more seas of happiness, which will bring immense goods to all the pilgrim souls." All amazed, I said, "My love, who will be this fortunate Mother, this Son, and this Spouse, which will conceal the Trinity on earth, and in whom your will be one?" And Jesus, "What? Have you not understood? Two of them are already at their place of honour, my divine Mama and I, the eternal Word, Son of the Celestial Father, and Son of the Celestial Mother, since by incarnating myself in her womb, I become her own Son. The Spouse is the little daughter of my will. I am in the middle, my Mama is at my right, and the Spouse at my left. As my will acts in me, it echoes to the right and to the left and forms one single will. This is why I have poured so many graces in you. I opened the doors of my will. I revealed to you the secrets, the prodigies, which my will contains, to open many ways, so that you might be reached by the echo of my will, and losing your own, you might live with my will alone. Aren't you happy? And I thank you, O Jesus, and I pray you, let it be so that I follow your will. End of the reading.